today.
Yeah.
That absolutely means nothing compared to what they're rapping about today.
What would they say about WAP? WAP.
Yes. Look, and WAP made it on the Grammys.
I'd be like, oh, we
Or
need
was
to
it
go back.
American Music Awards? One of those award shows.
We need to go back to the good old days. There's just normal potty mouth. Yeah, really. Oh boy, good morning, folks. It is the Power Hour. And as always, sitting around here reminiscing like old guys do, sitting at a McDonald's with a cup of coffee, talking for hours. The kind of old guys that would people see you at breakfast and lunch. Like, man, Rev, Bishop, y'all still here? Go ahead, you young punks. We ain't got nowhere to go.
Look, literally, there's a McDonald's right around the corner from my church. And I used to go in there in the morning, and there was that same crowd of older black men that were there every single day.
Well, I got news for you, buddy. We're those older black men now.
It was fellowship hour for them.
Yes, you and I are they. Jeez, man, where does the time go?
I know, really.
So since we're already up with our coffee, just talking, we'll do more than just simply play checkers and talk about old rap music. Sitting across from me here on the Power Hour is none other Bishop Dwayne David Rice.
And sitting across from me is the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler.
And as always, the fortunate one of us who gets to actually do this in the studio. The rest of us have been banned from the studio, but she gets to be there in studio. None other than Kawesa.
Good morning.
What's going on, Kawesa? How was the ride in today?
Not too bad. It started to rain a little bit, so, be careful out there, folks driving. It's starting to get a little wet. And, more and more people are out on the road, and they don't know how to drive because I guess they've been, pent up for a year. I have no idea. But, lots of crazy drivers that I've been noticing. But besides that, all good.
Crazy drivers early in the morning.
Yes, early.
That's really frightening, actually.
It is. It's a little frightening. Running lights and stuff. And I'm like, what are y'all doing? Like, just, we want to all get there, but not, we want to make it alive. Like, we're not trying to. So it's a little crazy.
So yesterday, I have some friends who are here from out of town. You don't get that much these days, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, so we've been vaccinated, So, I had to show them some stuff. Kind of showing them around Philly. We were like driving down Walnut into West Philly. You leave University City, and they kept remarking, like, I thought this was like the hood. I'm like, no, well, we'll get there. Turned on 52nd Street. They're like, this all still looks nice. A car, literally 2 cars in front of us. The car goes around like us, impatient. Another car runs the stop sign coming out that little street between Walnut and Chestnut, hits it, spins it around. The other car spins around. The drivers look at each other from their cars, and each drives off.
That's a Philly move right there.
I said, I told you. Don't let these beautiful old row homes fool you. They were like, did that just happen? Did that really just, Mark, did that just happen? I said, yeah. I mean, I grew up in Oakland, same stuff.
Yeah.
I'd even talk about something that happened to me similar, but yet I don't know about the statute of limitations. So, zip. It's years ago, but it may not be too far enough. Let's just say that's not my first time seeing that.
Sounds like you might have participated in something like that.
I didn't say that. I didn't say it. I just said, let's just say it's not the first time I've seen that before. So, hey man, listen, we're excited to have with us in the second segment this morning, a writer, a reporter who's actually going to talk to us about Zoom. And again, that's not Lionel Richie's Zoom, the Commodores, but Zoom, the tech application that I mean, who doesn't have Zoom now? I mean, I have members in their 90s who have Zoom. And they Zoom on Sundays. They Zoom to Bible studies. They Zoom to everything nowadays. Especially, I mean, the black church has made Zoom. Let's be honest, right? That Zoom ought to give some kickbacks, man. But they've made over $600 million in the last year. That's up from 16 million. I mean, they weren't too shabby to begin with. It was a very decent business, but my God, man, they're like flying private jets this year, right? The whoever runs it, but they paid no taxes, no federal taxes. And so to find out how that was pulled off, we're going to hear from a writer this morning at 6:20, because, you look at our schools, you look at our roads, you look at the poverty wages, and you wonder, like, man, like, why is this happening when America seems to be making so much money? Yeah, well, maybe this has a little something to do with it. I don't know.
Could be. I think we should convince Zoom to take the song Zoom and make it their theme song. Oh, Zoom, I like to fly far away from here now. That was for Sheila and Tawanda, who told me yesterday not to sing anymore on the air. So,
yeah, you didn't listen.
I'm
So
defiant, but anyway.
Well, listen. So he's going to come on at 6 after our first break. But obviously, right now, everyone is still talking about Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah.
And I just want to say this for the record: the way in which Boulder has been covered, the way in which we have, the way in which the media has approached this, and as a community we've approached this is how shootings, mass shootings ought to be covered, and shootings just in general, right? Because if you had a loved one who just went to the store and didn't come home because like somebody killed them, and we know, I think a lot of us know people like that, right? You would want their story covered. And so I was looking at the coverage this morning. I mean, we know their names. On MSNBC, for example, they had the names of all of the victims and their ages up on the screen for a very long period of time. On TV, if something's on the screen for 5 seconds, that's a long time. But they were up for about a minute or two while the anchor was talking, like, off camera. Steve Kerr, the head coach of my Golden State Warriors, came ironically to play, your Philadelphia 76ers, and here in Philly last night. And when Steve Kerr did his press conference, he was sitting in front of a blacked out screen. So it didn't have the Warriors logo behind him. And on the blacked out screen had the names. They put the names up there using technology of all of the shooting victims between Boulder and Atlanta from last week and this week. Very, very powerful images. And, we're hearing stories of the lives that these people led, the families that they had. And again, I'm not going to go the route which is to hate on it and say, why can't we get that? What I want to say is, this is how you're supposed to cover, these kind of events. The question we should be asking is, why is it that in these stories, the focus is not on the shooter?
Right.
The focus is on the people who have been shot. Where, by contrast, in shootings that happen, like mass shootings, like Alney at the bus stop, a month or so ago, and these repeated killings of innocent people in places like Philadelphia, Oakland, Atlanta, New York, Detroit, it seems that the obsession is, instead, we drag out the police, they talk about the rap sheet, they talk about the person who did it, and it's almost as though the people who got killed are insignificant. Can you help me understand this?
No. I can't.
Am I off base?
No, you're not off base. I mean, some of the crime, not the crime, some of the shootings, the issues that occur in, some of our communities, they don't want to cover the black folk, right? They don't want to tell the story of black families. I mean, if you ever notice that when somebody who is shot and they're a young black person. They're
Mm-hmm.
successful. They're a good student, right? That story disappears really fast. Now if they have a criminal record, it'll stay up there forever.
Mm-hmm.
There's a problem with the way that we cover shootings that occur in black communities. There's a problem in the way that we occur. I mean, going back to something that's close to you, Mother Emanuel, we talked a little bit about the victims in Mother Emanuel's case, and I mean, I think you had a much closer understanding because they were AME. I knew people that actually had family that were killed there. But the conversation became about Dylan Roof. Not about the fact that a state senator was killed, who also happened to pastor one of the oldest AME churches. And I mean, the big coverage then wasn't even about Reverend Pinckney anymore. It became about the fact that President Obama did his funeral.
Mm-hmm.
Right, it did the eulogy. So I think that there is inequity all the way around in terms of telling the stories of black folk that have been involved, whether in mass shootings or just shootings that occur on the streets. And then there's always this angle that is very destructive. Now, the interesting thing about the story coming out of Colorado, at least from what I've seen, and I've been watching a lot of the news and reading about it, we've only heard this conversation around was this a terrorist attack once, whereas in previous iterations that would have been the first assumption that happened once they found out who the assailant was. So there's something different in the air, but it begs me to ask the question, and which is a question you're asking as well, is why is this different? Why is this different that we're learning about the folk that were killed in the massage parlors? Why is it that we're learning about the folk that were killed in Colorado? Is it we finally learned our lesson? These things have been occurring in black communities for a very long time. Couldn't we have learned our lesson and done better by them a long time ago?
Yeah, I mean, boy, I tell you, it's just, I raised this question because you have to wonder if there was a different way that we talked about gun violence in inner cities, would that drive policy? Would that change the way in which, I mean, we know the answers, right? I mean, it's not, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, to drive down the violence, right? You got to put money in the community. You got to give young people gainful employment. You have to give them a life after high school, something to look forward to. You can't just, I mean, right. So we can't deprive people of all these things and expect that, a spiral of violence is not going to happen. But I just wonder if we covered the emotional impact of what these shootings do to people who are around after them, would that not change, everything else in how we look at it? Because right now, the way it seems that we cover these stories from the perspective where we're sitting in a place like Philadelphia is that this is about rival gangs that are shooting one another, and innocent people where you just collateral damage and we just move on. Helen Urbanus, we should have her on the show one day, because Helen Urbanus of Philly.com has been the only person that I know in the media who has consistently, I mean, without fail, given the kind of attention to the victims of gun violence in this city that they deserve. That's not to say others have not. I mean, Janice has done a good job, but Janice has, a wider range of things she writes about. Right. But Helen Urbanus seems to be obsessed with this. And I'm not, using that word, misusing that word. She does seem to have an obsession. If you look at her, at the list of articles that she's written, I mean, it's just, she actually did a piece within the last month, to my point, where she said, we may not be able to tell everybody's story, but at least we can list their names. And she listed the names of everybody shot and killed.
That's powerful imagery.
That's a start.
Yeah. And it also shows some respect as well.
Right. I just, I'm telling you, man, it's just, it is really something. And so I'm just simply saying, kudos to the coverage that the victims and their families are receiving in Boulder and in Atlanta. And I think that's what we need as well in all of the inner cities where violence like that is so commonplace that it doesn't even stop the news. In fact, hell, it doesn't even get to the A block anymore. That's the top. That's the top block on the evening news. It's like in the B block.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Well, that lets you know how people feel about us.
How
the news feels about us.
We cover. It's the first day of water ice in the spring before we get to unnamed, black person shot and killed.
Yes, that wasn't free this year. But anyway.
Yeah, that's another story. So, listen, like I said, again, we're going to have Matthew Gardner on in just a few minutes. And also, but there's one other quick story. So the Supreme Court, in an interesting twist, this story kind of combines all of what we talk about, the Fourth Amendment and the unlawful search and seizure that we're often lifting up, stop and frisk and things of that nature. And then gun control, right? Because that's the new big story, right? So Ted Cruz, by the way, just went off yesterday, man, on
Ted Cruz, that's a whole other story. We need to do a thing about him, but anyway.
And that mullet. Why did he bring that mullet back?
Because he's trying to get connected to his base.
I don't know what that thing is.
He's trying to claim Trump supporters, and so he wants to look like them.
Wow. Well, there's a story going before the Supreme Court, and the question is whether or not the police can go into someone's home and seize their guns when they believe that they're going to be a threat to themselves or to the community. This actually happened, and the guy sued them in turn. And it said, and they continue to say the lower courts are having some disagreement about it. It's going to be interesting to see how the Supreme Court weighs in on this, right? And is this an overreach? It seems like this is the perfect storm for making them have a conundrum. On the one hand, they believe the cops can do anything. This Supreme Court, of course you can go in and take their stuff. On the other hand, it is, wait a minute, gun rights? No, you can't take their guns. So wait, which one is it? I mean, look, unfortunately, nobody caught this 21-year-old in Boulder. If somebody knew what he was about to do and said this guy has mental health issues, that's being reported now, we believe he's going to be a threat to the community. By law, this is the question. Could the police have gone in preemptively? We talked about that Minority Report earlier this week, right? Could they, in sensing a pre-crime, have gone in and taken his weapons to stop this crime from happening or not? Man, we need to really watch this story. And if anybody out there knows a great guest, I know a lot of people, but I mean a really good guest for our show who follows the Supreme Court and writes and reports on it, send us a recommendation, put it in the Facebook chat, because that would be fascinating.
Gotcha. We're up on our break, actually. And,
past it. We blew past that.
We're trying to do better. So Quasi doesn't get upset.
We blew past that like 60 seconds ago. Let's just keep going. Kawesa, what's she gonna do? She can't. We're in our virtual studios. She can, all of a sudden you're gonna see my picture disappear from the screen.
That's right. You hear nothing. We can see you talking, but we can't hear a thing you're saying. So. She let me have my voice back. All right, it's the Power Hour. We'll be right back at 6:22. When we come back, we're going to talk about Zoom and a whole bunch of money. This is the Power Hour. Don't go anywhere. All right.
Attention WURD audience, do you know that you can get help with your PICO energy bill? PICO is here to help you with financial help through various assistance programs, including the PICO CAP program, which provides a monthly credit for eligible low-income customers based on the customer's total household gross income and energy usage. If you are experiencing financial hardship, you may qualify for the PICO CAP program.
And PICO Cares is the customer assistance and referral evaluation service designed to assist special needs, low-income customers who have a temporary personal or financial hardship that prevents the payment of your PICO energy bill. If you have a special needs child or adult in your care, your household may qualify for the CARES program.
Call 1-800-774-7040 today to see if you qualify due to an existing situation or a change in circumstances within your household. Call 1-800-774-7040 today for more information on the PICO CAP or PICO CARES program. PICO, powering our communities.
We do all we can to ensure our kids are happy, healthy, safe, and strong. Having high-quality, low-cost health insurance helps make that possible. With CHIP, your child can have medical, dental, eye care, and more for free or low cost. Whether you're self-employed, unemployed, or your employee benefits are just too expensive, CHIP is there for you to help your child be strong. CHIP Strong. Apply or renew today at 800-986-KIDS or go to chipcoverspakids.com.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Clark Roofing Company has over 30 years of quality roofing experience, providing exceptional customer service, honesty, and professionalism. Clark Roofing is a second-generation master roofer, installing top-quality roofing systems for commercial and residential properties across the tri-state area. For fast, dependable service, call 215-365-ROOF. That's 215-365-7663.
The Black Words Book Club. WURD Radio's new monthly conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. For April, WURD Radio is partnering with the Free Library of Philadelphia and showcasing their pick for its annual citywide reading program, One Book, One Philadelphia, entitled The Tradition by Jericho Brown. Be sure to listen live, as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it, Tuesday, April 13th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Welcome back to the Power Hour. This is Dwayne Royster along with Mark Kelly Tyler. We're here Monday through Fridays from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to bring you the latest in news, happenings around Philadelphia, and, of course, our opinion. And Dr. Tyler, we have a guest now, so I'll turn it over to you to welcome our guest today.
I appreciate it. So listen, we're going to turn our attention to the person who's coming on to speak about the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, Matthew Gardner. He is a senior fellow there, their former executive director, and he specializes in researching and writing on the impact of tax policies on low and moderate income taxpayers. So you know we have an interest in what he has to say. Matthew, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, listen, I mean, first of all, thanks for taking a chance on us. You know, when you have when people like reach out to you cold these days, it's like, I don't know. Hopefully you like listen to a little bit of our old shows. But thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Matthew, you caught my attention with this story, and probably a lot of people as well, about Zoom. We've been using Zoom. So Bishop Royster and I both are pastors of churches, in addition to talking about social commentary and social justice issues. And we don't know where we'd be without platforms like Zoom and Microsoft Teams and things of that nature to collaborate. But I have to admit, I was shocked by your story that they went from $16 million in profit to $660 million in a year, and somehow figured out how they could avoid paying any federal taxes on that money. Can you please explain it to people who are getting hit at 30 and 35% a year?
Sure. Well, there's 2 big findings here. Only one of them really surprising to me. The shocking thing, I think, is just how rapidly Zoom's revenue has grown and their income has grown in the last year. You know, this is a company that in 2019 made a total of $26 million worldwide. And then last year, during the pandemic, reports about $678 million of worldwide pre-tax income. So just a huge boost in their income, and resulting, from the widespread use that we saw. As you noted, most of us wouldn't know what to do without Zoom, whether it's work or school or even happy hours in the evening after work. That's how we've been doing things. But the thing that we're seeing as a result of that is, in corporations are supposed to. Zoom instead paid a total of 0 federal income tax on that $600+ million of U.S. income. And that's not at all surprising to me. I say that because what Zoom is doing in 2020 is, first, entirely legal, totally in accordance with the apparent wishes of Congress, believe it or not, and follows closely in the footsteps of other successful tech companies that we all know much better, like Amazon, Apple, Google, now known as Alphabet. There's this whole long history of companies using one particular tax break, a tax break for executive stock options, to get their income tax right down to 0. So I didn't even lift an eyebrow, really, when I saw that, to tell you the truth.
Could you explain us a little bit about how these executive the stock options work that allows them not to be taxable?
Sure. The heart of it is this. If you're running a business, you have expenses. You got to pay rent. You got to pay salary and wages to your workers. You get to write these things off. They're business expenses. That's the way the system works. And if it's a cash expense, obviously it's something out of pocket. This is something you ought to be able to write off. What a lot of the startup companies have done in the last couple of decades, and there are a couple reasons for this that I'll mention, is instead of paying their senior leadership and some of their other workers in salary and wages, the way most of us get our income, they'll pay them in part or sometimes entirely in the form of stock options, which basically are a piece of paper that allow these executives to buy share in the company at an artificially low price. So, Facebook starts out at 50 cents a share. Zoom starts out at some phenomenally small amount per share. And the company basically lets these executives stick a pin in that sale price. And whenever they want later on, they can buy a whole bunch of shares, an agreed amount of shares on that super low price, even if the stock price has already shot upwards. And so what they'll do is they'll buy it at the low price, immediately sell the shares at the higher price, make a whole bunch of money. That is what happened with Amazon for years. It's what happened for Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Apple, JP Morgan even. And it's what's happening to Zoom in 2020. There were a whole bunch of these outstanding options to buy and sell stocks. And some senior Zoom leaders, we don't know their names, sensibly saw that they could buy these stocks and then sell them for huge gains, and did so. And when that happened, Zoom was allowed to write off the sale price, what these guys sold the Zoom stock for, even though Zoom never spent anything like that amount in cash. It's not a real expense. It's sort of a paper expense at best, but they get to treat it, according to the rules of the tax system, as if it was real. And that's, in a nutshell, how Zoom got down to 0 on $660 million plus of U.S. income last year.
So, eventually, Matthew, will the money be taxed? So to your point, somebody's going to end up making money and have to take the money out of the bank somewhere. So these execs who, legally kind of like work the system, got paid. When they then take the money out to spend it, will they be taxed? Or is there another loophole?
The goal is that in the end, when individuals enjoy income from capital gains, it will be taxed. And so, there's a second layer of tax that will apply, just as there would if, to go back to my earlier example, if Zoom had paid its workers entirely in salary and wages, those salary and wages will eventually be taxed on the individual side as well. So on the second level, the taxation on the individual level, that's going to happen no matter what. The issue is, should it be deductible on the first level? And the answer to me is, well, sure, if it's a cash expense, if it's money out of pocket, that's a business expense. You write it off. boom, no question. But when it's a sort of an imaginary expense, as stock options pretty clearly are for these companies, there's no way you're allowed to write it off on the corporate level. The other thing we know, and it's a very good point you raised, by the way, we have a tax system that, in theory, could tax a stream of income more than once, first at the corporate level and then at the individual level. In practice, though, what we know is that instead of having a double tax, we have, some double, some zero tax. Some income is not taxed at either level, and sometimes it ends up being taxed exactly once. There are a bunch of reasons for that, but the biggest is just that our corporate tax code is Swiss cheese right now. We've done work showing that if you look at big publicly traded corporations overall, they're able to shelter roughly half of their U.S. income from tax by various legal means. That's not at all saying about the illegal stuff that is on top of that. All the tax breaks we allow add up to turning the corporate tax from a single tax into basically half a tax. So while double taxation is conceptually possible, in practice, it just doesn't happen. And it's tax breaks like this that are a big part of the reason why.
Matt, I got a question for you. I'm just curious, if Zoom had been taxed on the $660 million, do we have any idea how much that would actually have brought into the country's coffers to help us during this time?
We do. The corporate tax rate is 21%. So 660 million, 21% of that, it's a wee bit early in the morning for me, but that's surely north of $100 million. Now, that's not going to make or break the bank for our budget right now, right? I mean, in a good year, the corporate income tax is raising probably, $250, $260 billion a year. We're obviously not having a good year right now. And, so you raise an excellent question because we need, why should we care, right? We need to think about the setting. And there's two things that are important about the broader setting right now that make this important. One is that we hope, just starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel on the other side of what has been a horrendous year in every way for all of us. And a big part of that is the U.S. government sensibly spending a ton of money to support at-risk people, to directly fight the pandemic, to provide financial supports for those who can barely make it through. It costs a lot of money. And at a time like this, it's especially vital that those who have not only managed to stay afloat, but, as is true of Zoom, have really just thrived unbelievably as a result of the pandemic. These are exactly the people that we need to be paying their fair share to support all these important things that the federal government, that state governments, and local governments are doing right now to help keep us all with our heads above water. So, yeah, I mean, on its face, it's only, and I'm saying that with air quotes around it, $100 million when Zoom doesn't pay tax. But this is emblematic of a much broader thing. As we know, we've done a similar analysis showing how little Amazon has paid, for example, in the last 3 years. Combined 4% tax rate over 3 years. Netflix, on a much larger amount of income just this year, paid nothing at all. When you add this up, the combined impact of all these corporate income taxes not paid, you're talking tens of billions of dollars a year. And that materially affects our ability as a nation to pay for everything we need, from the short-term pandemic assistance to the longer-term meat and potatoes stuff that keeps the country going, transportation, infrastructure, healthcare, education. All these things are endangered in the long run when companies that are well off, like Zoom, like Amazon, like Netflix, don't pay a dime during years when they're doing really well.
Wow, Matthew, I'm going to tell you, we could go on and on with this. We hope that you'll be a regular contributor to our show because obviously the work that we do with our group Power in Philadelphia, we're deeply interested in these kind of things, and the Facebook Live chatter is lighting up as you're speaking. We'd love to have you back on to talk specifically about local taxes, because we have a theory that, big corporations in places like Philly don't pay their fair share. And as a matter of fact, before you go, do you have any opinion on these big quote unquote nonprofits like the universities around the country that act like for-profit institutions, pay no taxes, but have massive footprints? And I won't call any names like Penn or Temple or Drexel. I'm not going to call anybody's name this morning, but what do you think about those kind of things?
That's an excellent question. We've always drawn this border in our tax law between institutions that don't appear to be in the business of making a profit, which we exempt from income taxes, and those that clearly are. And many of the larger universities, including the ones you were tactful enough not to mention there, it's not always clear where that borderline is, right? They do appear to be making money hand over fist in some ways. There's a similar problem with, political advocacy nonprofits. There's this question of when the activities of a political nonprofit should be exempt or not. I think, these are thorny questions in deep waters. The thing I'd say right now is we need to police these distinctions. We need to think seriously about whether companies, whether universities, whether all nonprofits are living up to the terms they're supposed to be abiding by to be a nonprofit. And the only way we're going to do that is if we give the IRS and state and local tax authorities the money they need to pay workers, to investigate, to make sure that nobody's breaking the law. That is something we're emphatically not doing right now. And just as it's part of the story for why you see people straying outside their mission as nonprofits a little bit in some cases, it's also why we're seeing companies like Zoom just easily zeroing out their income taxes, and why other companies are using more obviously illegal means to zero out their income taxes. We need to give the tax authorities the tools they need to enforce the law, to make sure we know the difference between what's legal and what's not.
All right. Well, Matthew Gardner, thank you for getting up this morning. Senior Fellow with the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. If you need him, he's at ITEP. Hopefully, folks, this won't be the last time you hear from him. To have a great day, Matthew.
Thank you very much for having me. Bye.
Yep. All right, folks, it's 6:41 in the morning. When we come back, we'll break that down. Man, that was an excellent interview. It gave me a lot to think about, bro. We got some work to do.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to figure it all out in the next break. All right, we'll be right back.
COVID-19 has highlighted the need for digital equity and internet adoption programs. Comcast's Internet Essentials program is designed to connect families to low-cost, high-speed internet and laptops so students can be ready for anything. Since 2011, Comcast has connected 4 million students from low-income families to the internet through its Internet Essentials program. Learn more about how Internet Essentials is connecting students.
Did you know that March is National Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month? Colon cancer is the third most diagnosed cancer in both men and women. But for African Americans, 20% are more likely to get colorectal cancer and about 40% more likely to die from it than most other groups. For more information, go to getscreened.org. That's getscreened.org. Plus, stay tuned for more information on our up-and-coming Go to Know campaign for the WURD listening audience.
You probably heard it before, but one of the best ways to stay safe from COVID is by avoiding crowds. That's better. Also, when you're out in public, make sure you stay 6 feet away from strangers or people you don't live with. It's okay to say, "Can I have some space, please?"
Well, it's going to be a beautiful sunny day today, and we can expect much.
If you're gonna have a get-together with friends and family, have it outside. And remember to keep those 6 feet of social distance. And last but not least, wear a mask. that covers your nose and mouth with no gaps. They slow the spread of COVID or new forms of the virus called variants. And make sure you get your vaccine when it's your turn. We're all out here trying our best, and it's making a difference. We just gotta keep it up. We can do this.
To learn more about slowing the spread, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good morning. This report sponsored by Merrill Savali. Beginning to get busy as you make your way this morning. Southbound 95, Cottman down through Bridge, getting jammed through the construction. South of that, Allegheny through Girard, getting busy. Northbound not bad. Westbound Vine Lake Parkway through the Schuylkill Expressway. Looking at the Boulevard Route 1 southbound, delays getting heavy from 9th Street down to Roberts Avenue through ongoing construction. 55 northbound Deptford into 42 now. A busy ride as well. With Merrill Guided Investing, you have the option to work with an advisor at a low cost and minimum. Get started at merrilledge.com/investing goals. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner & Smith Incorporated, both a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor. Member SIPC. For more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. Jim Bachman with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a WURD weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley.
A cloudy start and cool, too, with some areas of fog developing this morning. Showers moving in this morning and then a rainy afternoon, combining to keep things cool today, a high of 58. Drying out tonight, down to 53 tomorrow morning. Breaks of sunshine tomorrow and a nice warm-up up to 74 degrees. But even warmer on Friday. Morning showers will clear out in the afternoon. Gusty winds will warm from 60 in the morning to 80 later in the day Friday. I'm NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Welcome back to the Power Hour. Dwayne Royster and Mark Kelly Tyler. We just wrapped up an interview with Matt Gardner, Senior Fellow of the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, tried to explain to us why one of the biggest benefactors of COVID, the COVID crisis, has paid zero taxes. Zero. Big zero. Zero taxes. Zoom went from a $16 million a year company to a $660 million a year company and paid no taxes. This is very problematic.
Well, it is. I mean, but speaking of Zoom, looking at the Facebook Live chat and the way some of y'all are mixing it up, I wish we could be on Zoom this morning. We'd put you in a breakout room to have your own discussion. Like, just they're in breakout room number 1. If you want to get into that conversation and discussion and debate, yeah, they're right there. But I mean, you know, so I saw Bernita's question earlier, and Bernita, I think that before we even got a chance to raise it, which was what could we do? It seems like Matthew really was kind of like leaning into that as he was going out on, you know, about what we can do. And I mean, it really is about, you know, public pressure and electing the right people. So I want to just say, money, if you ever want to know how powerful money is, you know, we talk about the depreciation of the American dollar. It doesn't stand up to the euro, doesn't stand up to the yen. It ain't what it used to be. Trust me, it still works in Congress. Because what you have seen and heard from Republican lawmakers, for example, we have witnessed 2 of the most gruesome public killings since the pandemic started, quite frankly. Right? I mean, aside from what we keep talking about, like within our own local communities, we've seen a lot. But like the big public mass shootings, that in the wake of it, the day after the mass shooting, you can have a Ted Cruz out there going hard, calling Democratic lawmakers who are raising the issue of gun control in this moment, calling it political theater. I mean, man, money is powerful. Money holds politicians in check. I'm not saying that's why Cruz is saying it. I'm just simply saying that the kind of money that is thrown at elected officials to lobby on behalf of pet projects, whether it's the NRA, whether it's what we were just talking about, corporate interests with taxes, whatever it is. And the reason that poor folk keep getting screwed is because apparently we're not throwing enough money at the right people.
That is 100% correct. And I say that all the time, right? I mean, this is part and why organizing becomes important, right? Because we are actually organizing against dollars. We take what limited dollars we can get, and then we organize people to be able to speak out on these issues. But honestly, at the end of the day, if you really want to know why certain policies are passed, I suggest you go check out the PACs, the Political Action Committee campaign funds of certain candidates, and see who gives them a lot of money. And you will then know why certain policies are passed, why they operate a certain way, why corporations are getting away with all kinds of stuff. And the fact that, I mean, if you really want to go back, this goes back to Citizens United. Okay, so Citizens United was a court case that had to do with corporations giving money to political candidates. And when the U.S. Supreme Court decided that corporations could give money to political candidates, things went buck wild. And because they were actually able to pour billions of dollars, I'm not talking about millions, but billions of dollars into political candidates' coffers, it has actually changed the dynamic in America in terms of where these political leaders are actually leaning in terms of policy around taxation for corporations. Corporations that have huge sums of money, billions of dollars of money, that are actually able to lobby to get the government to do what they want. This is why you've often heard me talk about the fact that we have a plutocracy or oligarchy. Oligarchy meaning that it's really run by corporations, a government run by corporations, because they're actually the ones that are determining our public policy right now. Unless we organize massive amounts of people at the grassroots that actually have more power to actually move people from political office or put people in political office, the corporations will always win because they have full-time lobbyists that are in those offices day in and day out. And those full-time lobbyists are actually able to talk to campaign staff for those political figures, and they're able to tie both the issues that they're talking about with checks that are being written to those political action committees so that those politicians can run for office again. It is a very problematic system that has to be addressed, and this is why we have the tax laws that we do today that tax human beings that are working every day, the average human being, the average American, to be able to have to pay a large amount of taxes, a portion of their income to the federal government, and we say corporations don't have to pay anything. And then we have corporate leaders that are out there saying that they're the job creators, and so they shouldn't be taxed because they're creating the jobs, when the reality is it's the same people that are being taxed heavily for being individuals and taking care of their families that are the ones that are job creators, because the corporations have nobody to give jobs to unless somebody's buying a product. And so the people that are actually the job creators are the consumers, not the corporations themselves. Well, y'all got me hyped today. Don't talk to me about economics now. This is how I'm messing stuff up.
But this is why they go so hard after the little people.
Yeah.
So, literally, I'll never forget, I got audited once because they didn't believe that my tithe was real.
Oh, wow.
No, seriously. I got audited over tithing.
I can believe that.
They were like, nobody gives this much to a church. And I was like, I'm the pastor. I got to kind of lead by example. And they're like, yeah, right. We're going to need to see a year of those canceled checks from the church, from yourself, because we just don't believe it. And I'm thinking to myself, like, are you serious? I mean, and granted, it wasn't even that much money in hindsight. This has been years ago. I mean, I was like paranoid when it first happened, like getting audited. What happened? The black lady who was there, and she says because they didn't believe that she was like, some of them don't go to church. They don't believe people give this kind of money to church. She said, I'm sorry, Pastor. She was very apologetic. She said they just don't believe people would ever give that kind of money to church. But I'm thinking like, so wait, you go this hard after me, and you got corporations out here that are making billions of dollars and paying zero taxes. So you know what happens, because they're doing that quote unquote legally. It may be immoral, but it's legal, right? They got to get the money from somewhere, so they can't afford slippage from anywhere.
That's right.
So you little person, yes, if your tax is $5,000 a year, we want all of it. Don't you try to hide it, because we ain't getting it from Zoom, we ain't getting it from Netflix, we're not getting it from Amazon. We're not getting it from all these other places, but we're going to get it from somewhere. And so we're going to hit you hard because we got to make up for the breaks that we've given to the most wealthy. The people who can least afford to pay the most. The people who can afford to pay the most pay the least. Welcome to America.
I mean, this is even deeply more problematic because those individual executives have tax shelters themselves, that they're actually able to hide their money. So it's actually I mean, we learned this from Donald Trump, right? There are ways what he paid, like, a very small amount, like less than $1,000 in taxes some years, because he was actually able to hide all his money. So then the money that they're made, not only is the $660 million that they made not taxed, but then this high amount of money they give their executives is not taxed because they're actually able to hide their money. So basically, this money goes all the way through the system tax-free, and the consumer who is supporting a corporation that's providing a benefit, but the corporation has a responsibility to help take care of the community at large, is doing absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And the individuals, whereas the regular employees, Joe Schmo, computer analyst at Zoom, is paying their taxes, the corporate leadership that are making millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, are paying no taxes because they're hiding all their money in a bunch of other places in tax shelters so that they're able to access it at later dates and times, and sometimes in other countries. Not that I'm saying they are doing this necessarily, but there are people that do that.
Hey, this is legalized money laundering.
That's right. Sharon Taylor just said, we pay taxes on unemployment. People who are struggling on unemployment, but we can't tax those that are making $1 million a year. That's crazy.
That's my big sister. You didn't know that?
No, I did not know that. Hello, big sister. Nice to meet you.
I don't know if she's in Cali, but it's like early in the morning there. Yeah, but look, this is legalized money laundering. Money laundering is you take dirty money, you clean it up, you wash it a couple of times, and it comes out clean. In this case, it comes out clean, and you keep it all of it. So I mean, so Zoom don't pay, then the execs get it, and they have great, CPAs who are like, oh, we can knock this off, knock that off. And before you know it, it's all done and nobody's paid anything except guess who? The little people. And I'm just saying, check this out. I know we got to go. But little people, there are actually more of us than it is of them. And to your point earlier, that's why you have to get organized. I rest my case.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody, for following the Power Hour today. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you, Matt Gardner, for being here with us. All the folk that checked in with us on the air, or those on the app, those on Facebook, those on YouTube, those on whatever means that you managed to check in with us, we deeply appreciate you today. We'll be back tomorrow morning from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to bring you the latest in news, happenings around Philadelphia, and, of course, our opinions. Thank you, Koesha. Thank you, Reverend Tyler. Thank you all. Listen, stay tuned for Wake Up with Word with Solomon Jones, and do us and yourselves a favor. Go out today, change the damn world, because if you don't, nobody else will. Peace.